Testing. Testing. All right, we're good to go. Can you hear it?
I don't have anything. Staring at me, and then my phone. Yeah, it takes a while. Yeah, but it's smooth.
Perfect. All right.
All right, let's go. Let's go.
All right, shoot me. All right, guys, sorry about that. So basically, we're having an issue with the Wi-Fi here, and it's making it very laggy. So I just basically shut down the first stream, and we're trying again. We adjusted the setup a little bit, so the audio will be good, but the picture will be a little blurry for the walkthrough. For in-person stuff at the studio, it seems like the picture's fine. So we're going to do a walkthrough, talk as much as humanly possible, and then we're going to schedule a bunch of in-person interviews throughout the day, so that way you can have some content where you can actually see the baits and things like that. So bear with us here as we go through everything.
Take a left.
Man, this is crazy stuff. Outdoors. I'm fine. There's so many people to pick from. Hello, sir. Do you mind if you're? We're doing some of the media here for this place. You like that? All right. So, Paul, this is Thomas with Fishing DMV here at the Raleigh Expo. What do you got going on at this booth?
Well, we import fishing line from Europe primarily.
Oh, wow.
It's manufactured in Germany. It's a little bit different than what most people are accustomed to here. The poundage is different because, like, instead of being 15 pounds, which you normally see on, say, Trilene or Strand or whatever other brands, ours would be 15.2 or 10.6 because our label is the actual breaking strength of the line.
Okay. Wow. What's the product that sells the most?
That would be either these, anything here, or the fluorocarbon.
Oh, that is awesome.
So this is a copolymer.
Oh. That's really cool.
This is a copolymer. That's a mono. That's a mono. It's clear. The difference between these two is just color. That's a green. That's a smoky gray. This is a straight mono.
Oh, wow.
It's used for mostly saltwater.
Is mono bigger in saltwater versus fresh right
yes. Now? There is a little trend now going toward the copolymers for saltwater.
Okay.
they're using a lot of copolymers for leader line now, which is coming out. We're bringing that line out. It'll be on the market probably in about a month.
About a month. Okay. Wow.
Fluorocarbon is always popular. That's been popular for quite some time, and braid, of course.
I've never
you can
heard
see
about
even
this.
on these, the poundage is not a full number.
Yeah.
Because
Interesting.
when we break it, whatever it breaks at, that's what we put on the.
Oh,
the
wow. How light should you go for bass fishing around these areas, would you reckon?
As light as you're willing to tolerate. It's probably good. If you have the right equipment, you can downsize the line quite a bit. I mean, there's records of 20-pound catches on a 2-pound line.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the rod and your ability to adjust the drag correctly and take your time getting the fish in. That's the biggest thing.
Okay, awesome. And then if people can't make it this weekend, where can they find you? Do you have a Facebook?
BALX. That's not spelled correctly. Ball sacks. There we go. Now you can see how to spell it. USA.com.
USA.com?
Yes.
Thank you so much for your time, sir. I really appreciate it. Guys, come on down here and check it out. Let me know how the audio is right now that we got things updated here. No, I can't spell. Trust me. I cannot spell to save my life. Now we're just going to keep going through here, keep checking things out.
It's just still really choppy.
That's fine.
The further we get away from our food, I can't really see what we're looking at anywhere. So we quickly between loops. Make sure you tell them.
Yep, we're moving quickly between booths here. Look at these bottle openers. These plugs look amazing. Oh, wow.
These call me like Doswell, right?
I believe so. These plugs are beautiful, though. Can you see them okay?
Yeah. Let's go in.
It's going.
Good to see you again.
These are beautiful wine plugs. Absolutely gorgeous. Drop dead gorgeous. I think let's keep on going this way. Hey! Come on down here, guys. OBX Charters. There, come on. Yeah.
Who am I talking to?
What do you got going on
Are
here?
we live here?
right now
Oh,
on the
man.
Facebook page.
Wave Runner Fishing Charters, Outer Banks, Juan Cheese Marina. Come join us. We'd love to take you fishing.
Awesome. Thank you so
There
much.
you have it.
Before I get the right one.
Let's see, we got biz baits. I'm definitely getting the biz baits booth at some point. And they're pretty busy right now. Ooh, Faithful Baits. They look good.
Faithful baits.
Yeah.
Go in.
Let's talk to them in a minute.
Plastics on that rack.
That's beautiful. These jigs look amazing. It's right there.
Now we're back. Yeah, I couldn't text you. I have no phone to tell you that it was not live. Well, I can see it. As soon as we're not live, I can see it. Yeah. It's like further away you get from us, the worse it gets. I know, that's what I told her.
So is it not using Wi-Fi, you think?
Where the Wi-Fi router's over here.
Could be. Let's walk over there.
Yeah. What I would do is when it starts to get jumpy, when it goes into, because it stops, freezes, focus on their banner or something. That way people know what you're reading and it's not moving, so it doesn't jump. I thought trying not to move as much as possible. Yeah, but they're moving. Yeah. Which makes it jerky. So if you get
live. All right, guys, let me know how it sounds right now. We're calling a little bit of an audible here. The internet is not great, and we got a little router that's centralized right here. So as long as I'm at the booth, we're clean, we're crystal. I just can't roam around with the phone right now. So joining us, as we're going to give you guys as many interviews here at the booth as possible over the next 3 days. Boss, thank you so much for coming on. Just tell me a little bit about your products and what you got.
Oh, yeah. So I'm John Martin, the owner of True South Custom Lures. We've been around since 2008. Everything we do is wire and lead baits, jigs, spinner baits, buzz baits, terminal tackle. Everything's hand tied. Everything's made in our shop. We try to source all the U.S. made materials we can in our products. And yeah, man, we enjoy fishing as much as we do making baits. And I brought a few baits here to show off, and we're here to talk to the fishermen here at the Raleigh show. They want to talk about fishing, talk about baits. We can give some tips and things that'll help them have a little bit better day on the water.
Absolutely. So, I mean, first off, like, how did you get into this?
Well, I used to fish a lot when I was younger and travel around and fish the Redman Trail, the BFLs, and just local tournaments, regional stuff. And I was always a bait tinkerer. I always messed with my own baits. And I like to improve baits that were out there available. I never really made anything until probably about 20 years ago. I started making some baits and tying some baits, and then I started selling some stuff to my friends. My wife encouraged me to start a website. We started a website. I had a regular job plus doing that, and it just took off from there. I mean, but I really enjoy improving on baits that are out there, making new stuff. But I'm just a tackle junkie, like a lot of these guys are, you know.
Did you ever have that moment where you're like, this is something I want to start really pursuing harder?
Well, when I was working a regular job and making this stuff, I was just making extra money on the side. And then it got to be too much where I couldn't do both. And we had young kids, and my wife's like, you know, if you can retire early from your job, I'll help, you know, support you while you're doing your passion, you know. And she supported me, and we started making our own baits, and we started our website, and we got into stores. And that's what I've been doing for the past probably 5 or 6 years. So,
Wow.
So it's been awesome. Like, I've been home while our kids grew up. I wasn't working a crazy shift. I had about 25 years in the chemical industry.
Oh, wow.
Working for them while I was making baits too.
So really got started really after, I guess, COVID year, so to speak?
Well, we started our website in about 2013. About 2008, I started making baits to sell.
Okay.
So we've been doing it, you know, for a while.
That's awesome. So what do you got for us?
Well, I love fishing topwater, and we probably known best for our V-twin buzzbait. It's won a lot of money across the area, across the country. It's starting to get some really good traction. Wired to Fish picked it as the best double buzzbait on the market.
Oh, that is so cool.
There's a cool article they did on it, but really, we just wanted to make a better double buzzbait. This buzzbait's cool because it's tunable. You can make it hit, the blades hit together. You can bend it out and make it a little bit quieter. It's a secret bait a lot of guys don't want to talk about because it works so well. And then we came out with the one that everybody wants to throw, the one for the frog.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I was going to talk to you about that. That is cool.
Yeah, you can rig several different plastics over the head of that bait. And it's a cool bait. It's gotten some national attention as well.
So, I mean, just from a buzzbait aficionado as yourself,
Yeah.
when did the skipping a buzzbait, has that always been a thing? Because it just seems like once a tournament's won, like the adding a toad, it like pops into the zeitgeist.
Right.
But has it always been a thing?
Well, so I grew up fishing Lake Wiley, and it's really, I think, where it's got its start. Todd Alton, a pro local to Lake Wiley area, started putting the horny toad on just a regular R-bend single buzz bait, and they started skipping this bait around. Brian Thrift kind of got started doing it too. It kind of was a regional thing. Nobody really talked about it for a long time. And there was a couple customers that came to us and asked us to make like a specific bait made just for rigging a toad. So they were just taking a traditional buzz bait and putting the frog on there. So, but it's kind of a regional thing, but then I think Jacob Wheeler brought a lot of attention to it, winning some tournaments with it. And it's kind of taken off from there. It's been around for a longer time than people realize.
Is skirt still, is a situational when you go with a skirt versus a toad or a fluke?
Well, it got to be where everybody just wants a naked buzz bait to throw a frog or a plastic or something when it got a lot of popularity. But really, I think it's just a personal choice. I think a skirt has a little more bulk and profile, but a plastic has a little more bulk as far as the plastic goes. It lets that bait sit down a little bit and lets the fish get a better bite on it.
Okay.
But I think it's just a different look. I don't really have a preference. I throw both. I don't really have a time to say this is when I'm throwing a skirted bait over a plastic. I just kind of let the fish dictate what's working.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we do have a question from Brandon on here, and he is asking silver versus gold blades.
I think if the fish are feeding on a lot of small shad, I tend to go with silver a lot more in the fall. But there's times when the gold has been really popular.
Okay.
For some reason. Guys are putting black frogs on them. Even the black blades are really popular too. But I feel like when those fish are biting on those really small shad during a shad spawn or in the fall, I tend to go with silver blades over the gold.
Huh. Interesting. Okay.
Yep. But I really feel like it's a confidence thing too. If you got a lot of confidence in silver blades, and you're going to fish a lot better. It's the same thing with any bait.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
What is your thought on trailer hooks for buzz baits? Growing up in high school, my coach always said never put a trailer hook on there at all.
That's a divisive topic.
I know.
So I don't use trailer hooks very much because a lot of our baits, we make them with a longer shank hook. So the bait's sitting back, the hook's back there.
Okay.
And especially if I'm throwing around cover, a lot of times that trailer hook will grab on something a little bit easier. But I feel like if you're catching them with the regular hook without a trailer and you're not having problems with missed fish or anything, then you're probably better off. But there are times when the fish are coming up and nipping at a bait, I feel like a trailer hook is a better choice.
Awesome.
But me personally, I rarely use a trailer hook on our buzz baits.
Okay, that's good to know.
So especially if you're fishing the plastics. You know?
Now, and that head looks pretty. What's the size?
It's probably a quarter ounce.
A quarter ounce? Okay.
Yeah, it is. The way it's designed, it has a couple little barbs on it and some side barbs to keep your plastic from twisting on there when you rig it on. But you can rig, like, I'll put a fluke on this all the way over the lead, a swim bait, solid swim bait, a frog. You could put a Z-crawl or something like that, a little Rage Menace crawl. Work good on there, too. Or like the Rage Menace grub, I'll put that on there a lot. Make a smaller profile.
Interesting. What, and you have a spinnerbait there, too, right?
Yeah, this is our 3-blade live wire spinnerbait. It's the 026 wire. It's super light wire.
That looks cool. Wow.
And it's a very natural, like it's a hidden weight spinnerbait, so most of the weight's back here behind the skirt. But it's a really good clear water spinnerbait. I fish Lake Norman a lot, so the spotted bass just love this thing. It's very natural, so when you're reeling it back, it's just like this arm's just bouncing. It looks real natural in clear water.
Now, why weight it that way specifically? That's a very unique way to put the weight on the bait.
I think it just makes the profile of the head look a little smaller.
That is really, really cool.
War Eagle came out with the Screaming Eagle buzzbait years ago that was built like that. And there's several other on the market like it. But to me, it's a clear water spinnerbait. If I'm fishing dirty water, I'll use one of our pulse heads, which is a little more traditional,
Okay.
style spinnerbait. But this is the clear water spinnerbait. But I mean, it's a really good fish catcher everywhere, to tell you the truth.
How many blades is too many on a spinnerbait?
Well, me personally, we built like multi-blade spinnerbaits for a while, up to 4 blades. It's really where we stop. Because a lot of times when you start adding more spinnerbait blades to that arm, a lot of them won't even turn at all. They may rock back and forth, but they don't completely turn around the wire. So I don't want to build something that, not to say they won't work anyway, but I want my blades to rotate around so I get more flash. But, I mean, 4 blades is where I usually draw the line. I mean, I've seen 5 blades and 6-blade spinnerbaits, really small blades on them. Like I say, that's the most we put on one is about 4 blades.
Now, are you a spinnerbait trailer person or not?
On this bait, I don't, a lot of times don't even put a trailer on it. It has a tapered skirt.
Okay.
Sometimes I'll put just a small little twin tail on it. I don't want like a ton of action out of this bait since it's a clear water bait, and I'm probably going to be moving it pretty fast.
Okay.
In dirty water, I'll go to a curl tail trailer, something that has a more thump to it where I can slow it down more on that way. So I kind of let the watercolor dictate the trailer that I use.
That makes sense. What colors really for this area would you suggest people getting in your spinnerbait?
Well, the 3-blade is really good on Jordan Lake here in Raleigh. But like, I really like spinnerbait colors that are more natural, unless the water's dirty. And I'll go to, chartreuse and white. You can't go wrong with that, or white. You could probably have just those 2 colors in your box and you're fine.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really just a personal preference. I have 2 or 3 confidence colors that I use, but every fisherman has like their confidence colors. That's why we have to make more,
Why is it chartreuse was such a thing for so long?
I don't know. It's still good.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what the drawing power is of chartreuse, because nothing is chartreuse in the water.
Mm-hmm.
It's just those bright colors. I think it triggers the fish. Maybe they can see it better in certain conditions.
Because they haven't gotten, it seems like, conditioned to that. When,
No.
I mean, Jimmy Houston threw it 100 years ago, and even to now, like, it's not like they never turned off of
Right.
that
You
color.
just look at, like, smallmouth.
Yeah.
Smallmouth
Yeah.
love a chartreuse spinnerbait, and they love black.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why is that? I don't know.
Yeah, black is interesting. Is that making more of a resurgence? And I see that more in hard baits now, like the black color. Yeah.
Yeah.
It used to be only nighttime, and now you're
Right.
seeing it in just generic baits.
I don't think there was for a while, you didn't see black baits. You did early on, like way back when bass fishing first took off. You seen a lot of guys throwing like black baits or white baits or red and white. Like, nobody throws red and white anymore. And that was a very popular color in like vintage lures and stuff.
Yeah.
So.
And then with your jigs, I mean, you have some really interesting designs there. What do you guys do with your jigs?
Well, we have our standard, like an all-purpose flipping jig, or like what we call the fathead jig. You can do just about anything with that. And then we have a flipping jig, like this is our undercover jig. It uses the owner jungle hook. It's super high quality. It has a coil lock, screw lock keeper on the shank of the hook.
And is that I know it. I can say it in my head, but archaic. What kind of?
This fathead jig it's similar to an Archie style, but it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
And the center of gravity in like a wider Archie jig will roll over a little easier. This one, if you push it over, it wants to be back upright.
Oh.
So, yeah, so if you're looking at the jig, if it's on the bottom, this jig has a lot of weight in the bottom of it, so it doesn't want to roll over as easy. They want to keep that hook riding straight up. You get them in the top of the hook, in the mouth, like you want to get them in the top of the head with your jig. This one has a good center of gravity. That's important in a jig to me.
How long did it take you to design it?
Well, this is actually just a standard do-it mold that we've modified to our design. Like, all we really did is change the hook in it and change the head just slightly.
What's your favorite weight for a jig?
I tend to throw heavier jigs, especially in clear water. I want them to fall faster because we skip docks around Lake Norman and the areas we fish. We want the jig to fall fast so we get a reaction strike out of them. So this one's a 9/16. It's a little bit heavier than a half ounce, but standard, I'll use 9/16 or a half most of the time in this style jig. Unless the water's cold in early spring, I want a little bit slower fall. I'll go to a 3/8 or 7/16. But a lot of times I'll just adjust the trailer to adjust my fall rate.
Okay.
Something that has a little more action and drag will slow your bait down.
Yeah. What is
That
your
way.
perfect setup with that jig?
This jig, I really like just a standard, like Zoom Big Salty chunk on it. Just a standard chunk, just tipped on the hook. That's just an old school way of fishing it. Other than that, sometimes I'll use like a Zoom Z-Crawl or a flapping style bait, or like a Zoom Fat Albert, like a twin tail on that.
And then are you going with 15-pound test, 20-pound test? Like what?
I usually stick to 20.
20? Okay.
Yep. Yep.
Interesting. It just feels like, I guess to me, because like where I come from up in Northern Virginia with the Potomac and how we fish, skipping is not culturally something I always did growing up.
Right.
It just seems like 20 is pretty heavy for skipping, but do you feel like you need all that?
Well, if we're skipping under docks, we're going to be, if we hook a fish under that dock, we want to be able to get him out. And a lot of times you got poles and cables and different brush piles and all kinds of stuff under there. So that's what I like to use. Some guys will go to 17 and even down to 15. And some guys go even heavier. But for me, I just like 20. That's just kind of my go-to.
That's good to know.
If I drop down to like a little finesse jig, if I'm fishing a big jig and they stop biting it, a lot of times I'll just change the profile of my jig and keep the similar setup that I'm using because I'm still fishing the same way. Sometimes that profile change will make a big difference in how those fish are bite. They'll stop biting a big jig, but then you switch to a smaller profile and they continue to bite it. It's not like they got off the jig bite. It's just they just changed their mood and they just want a smaller profile.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But 20 on this 7-foot medium heavy or heavy fast action rod is what we usually use.
Swim jigs, has that really caught on down in this area?
Well, in the Carolinas, since we don't have like a ton of grass lakes, we throw like, especially around Lake Norman in that area around Charlotte. If we say we're swimming a jig, a lot of times we're swimming a jig like this because we're skipping under the dock and like popping it out and swimming it around cover. We're not really swimming it through grass. If we have grass, then I would go to like a standard, like a swim jig with a bullet style head over that jig if I'm fishing grass. That's kind of where I change. If I'm going to grass, I'm going to this type of jig.
Yeah, this is going to be helping my James River and Potomac River guys.
Yeah, that one has
That
the
tighter
Mustad
head.
skipjack hook in it, and it's a compact swim jig that we make.
Yeah, and then we got Kyle in the chat. All right, pull up
That
Kyle's
color
coming
is
here.
probably good for you guys too.
Yeah. Yeah, this black glimmer, man, it will absolutely kill it on the Potomac River. I wish I could make it out now because of the storm. Hey, dude, we're going to be here all weekend to come on out. The weather will subside. And then if you guys don't know that are listening in, we're opening tomorrow at 10 a.m., a little bit of a delay. That way everyone can get out safe and sound. If people can't make it because of the snow, where can they find your products?
They can find our products. We have some dealers up in your area. Fishing Protect is one of our dealers up there. I think they're in, I can't remember exactly, but they're around Potomac River, I'm pretty sure. Or the James. I'm not exactly sure where that store is at, but it's in your area. But they also can go to truesouthlures.com and purchase them online.
That's
There.
awesome.
Yep.
And then, guys, please go check them out. If you can, get on over here. We got Mike Tom says, need some of them baits. Yeah, dude, absolutely. There's some really cool stuff down here. I also got to ask before I get you off of here. The one thing I noticed about this show compared to like the Richmond or Susquehanna fishing tackle up in smallmouth country, the saltwater game. How big is saltwater fishing down in the Carolinas to, let's say, people that are up in Virginia?
Right. It's big from, well, it's big. We're from over towards the Charlotte area of the Carolinas, but it's big. Like, guys, there's a lot of people that have like a trailer or a camper down towards the coast that they like to do saltwater. I know a lot of guys that do both, but it's pretty good. I mean, it's a big deal.
That's awesome. So, guys, come on down. Come support him. Thank you so much. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back with our next guest.
All right. Appreciate it, man. Thanks, so.
And we... Alrighty, everyone, just want to let you know our next guest is going to be on Fishing the DMV at 1 o'clock. So it is 12:52. At 1 o'clock, we'll be having our next guest. And then we got, please send me a message on where I can get them. Absolutely, boss. I will get back to you with True South Custom Lures. Actually, he's like the booth right next to me. So, which is pretty cool. So I'll try to get that to you as soon as possible. If you guys could like and share, it really helps us out in the algorithm. But again, in 9 minutes, we have our next person on. Hey, boss. Hey, how you doing? Oh, righty.
You got all the fancy stuff, man.
Oh, dude, I got more technology than Elon Musk. It's insane. But yeah, and Starlink, by the way, everyone, I will be investing in Starlink as soon as I can. I got another great guest. I've had him on the podcast before, but for the people that don't know, could you state who you are and what you're doing here?
Yeah, so I'm Dave Hart. Kind of been local to this area, got into the kayak scene several years ago, and here we are. Always try to come over and pop over to the expo. It's a happy medium. It's not a huge, crazy, chaotic expo, but it's not teeny tiny and podunk, so it's a nice, nice happy medium for anyone in the region.
It's pretty crazy. I can't believe the size of this one compared to like the Richmond Expo. It's absolutely nuts. I want to talk though just a quick little thing about just winter fishing real quick, if you could.
Yeah, so I could probably give a different perspective than most. Being from the kayak world, I know you guys, you talk to a lot of bass boat anglers mostly. Wintertime's great for the kayak. You got to be safe, obviously. That's utmost of concern. But because there's a lot less pressure on the water, a lot less, wake boats, jet boats, even bass boats, it's like paradise for those. The guys can kind of deal with the weather and the cold temperatures. And the bite's fun. It's a very particular bite. There's kind of a cult following of wintertime fishing out of the kayak down here. I think it started on Sharon Harris Reservoir. That secret it was kind of funny because it was kind of locked into just the kayak guys for a while, from what I understand. And secret kind of got out. So you see more of the guys doing it out there. Just, deep vertical fishing. I'll leave it at that. But it translates to some of the other lakes. Some it sets up really well, and some it doesn't. And we were just talking, this year it's exciting because we haven't had a true cold winter in about 2 or 3 years. And, we had water temperatures in the 40s, like right after Thanksgiving. So it was like, we were all salivating to get out, and it's when the big girls come out. So it can be fun.
You see what this does to the pre-spawn too.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. It would be very interesting because, you hear it every year, but like every time it's like, it's off. Things are off this year. It's late. It's early. It's weird, and this will just be another curveball. See how it does.
If people wanted to reach out to join tournament kayak fishing, team kayak fishing, how could they find you?
So the team kayak fishing, if you look up Kayak Bass Team Series on Facebook, we're on there. So for us, it's a national trail. In our backyard here, we actually have a team here in North Carolina. There's 2 teams out of Tidewater, Virginia. So we're looking to grow. So that's the team stuff. But there's also the local trails here. Central Carolina Kayak Fishing is based out of here in Raleigh. You got Carolina Kayak Anglers out of Greensboro, both on Facebook. Look them up. And then I actually ran in and met Daniel Cason today. Shout out to Daniel. He's down in the Wilmington, North Carolina area. And he's doing a cool spin because he's going to incorporate basically half saltwater tournaments and half freshwater bass tournaments. And he's figuring out the point system to do all that. So it's a way to do something different, It's very cool.
I am really excited to see where the technology goes in a couple of years, because it's just, and again, I'm now dabbling in being like a tournament director, so to speak, with monthly tournaments. And I just keep taking it back. Like, this is insane that like 10 years ago, we didn't even have live to watch Bassmasters, and now I have a damn app, and I can be a tournament director in my underwear in my living room. It's insane how quickly this thing's going.
Well, and you mentioned the future is like, with Starlink, we're starting to see it like, guys can put the Starlinks either on, we're going to talk about putting it on the front of our kayaks for a team series and try to do some live streaming. So yeah, not just the technology of the actual, active fishing, but the way to broadcast it and communicate. It'll be interesting. To see how it goes.
Dave, thank you so much for coming on, guys. All right, guys, we have, we got Rick Hendricks. He's going to be coming on here at, I guess, 1:20. At 1:20, we got Rick Hendricks coming on. So be looking forward for that. I'll see you guys here. All righty, guys, we are back with our next guest. We have Rick Hendricks of the North Carolina Wildlife Resources, Reef Wildlife Control specifically. But, you know, that's not my area of expertise, so I'll just let this man talk about it. Thanks for coming on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, hey, y'all. Hope everyone's doing all right. So my name is Nick Hendricks. I'm the artificial reef biologist for the state of North Carolina. So my job is to build reefs, whether it's for oyster habitat inshore or finfish habitat offshore. They're open for fishing and diving, and they're up and down the coast. So we've got 72 of them and counting. Most of the ones offshore, minimum size is 162 acres.
Wow.
So these are all large scale reefs. Inshore, like, you know, in the Pamlico Sound, for example, you know, they range in size anywhere from 5 acres to 100 acres. Built with a variety of different materials. Inshore, our main focus is creating oyster habitat. So we typically build it either with manufactured reef balls or mined limestone marl. So think, you know, basketball-sized limestone marl. Same stuff you see like in a drainage ditch, things like that. But we build them in big mounds, and that allows oysters to grow on. The idea being, you know, if you have these oyster reefs that, you know, they'll grow oysters, those oysters will spawn, and then that spawn or spat will get carried around in the currents and settle in other areas. Great fishing habitat if you're an inshore fisherman. All the typical species, you know, red drum, trout, sheepshead, they love these reefs. Offshore, same principle. You know, we're building them for to attract fish, right? So large scale reefs, we're building them where old bridges, recycled concrete pipe, crushed concrete. We sink vessels on them. You know, again, to attract these fish, create habitat. Been doing it since the 1970s.
Wow.
As state government. You know, before that, you know, people have always known, you know, if you put stuff in the water, it's going to attract fish, right? And so, you know, people would throw old cars and washing machines and all kinds of crazy things out in the ocean, you know, because they knew that it attracted fish. Well, the state took that program over and started saying, okay, you know, stop throwing the trash out. We're only going to do specific things. We learned a long time ago, you know, things like tires don't make great reef habitat, you know, because they don't stick around. So for the last 30 or 40 years or so, the only thing that we're building these reefs with now, recycled concrete, right? Because it stays put, it stays there for a long time. And boats, vessels, you know, old tugboats, military vessels, fishing ships, things like that.
How long does it take, if you're going to take a tugboat, to get that thing ready to be sunk and turned into a reef? Is that a process?
So it's definitely a process. We obviously, you know, you're not buying the new boat on the lot, right? You're buying the boat that's going to get sold for scrap anyways. And so they're cleaned, they're inspected, and typically, you know, say the average, you know, 100-foot tugboat, you're looking at somewhere between a month and 3 months to fully clean it. It kind of depends on, you know, how quickly they're working on it. But that, you know, getting all the fuel and oil out, stripping all the electronics, all the copper wire, things like that. You know, what we don't want to do is put trash in the water, right? That's counterproductive to what we're trying to do. So everything that we're putting out there is, you know, recycled, clean material. But once it's in the water, you know, whether it's the limestone marl or a reef ball or, you know, 2,000 tons of concrete pipe, what have you, typically, you know, that stuff, fish are attracted to it almost immediately. You know, there's been boats that we've sank, for example. A couple years ago, we did the 180-foot Brian Davis off Wilmington. That was it's out about 70 feet of water. We sank it, and I was diving on that boat within 20, 30 minutes. And, you know, there was already fish circling it.
Really? That's fascinating.
You know, and then after that, it's just a matter of time, you know, for the algae and the coral and the sponges and everything to settle onto it. And really, it doesn't really matter what type of material it is. You know, I would consider the material we put out as a, you know, a fully functioning reef just within a few years.
That's fascinating, guys.
So it's a quick process once it's out there.
Yeah, and please, guys, like and comment. Let me know in the chat if you have any questions. What is the life cycle of a reef? Does it have, so to speak, for lack of a better term, an expiration date, or is it something that just continues to improve with time?
So, like I said, we've got right now 72 reefs up and down the coast that are specifically built as artificial reefs to create habitat and go fishing and diving on. The lifespan of that, really is the lifespan of the material. So one of the reasons why the only thing we use now is concrete and steel-hulled vessels is because that is the material that lasts the longest. So concrete, for all intents and purposes, has no expiration date. I mean, it's at least not in our lifetime. I mean, it's going to be there for a long, long time. Steel-hulled vessels, you're looking anywhere from 20 to 100 years, I'm sure more. We have vessels that are out there. For example, we've got 4 World War II Liberty ships that are on some of these reefs that were put out in the 70s, and they're still there, So, I mean, we've got, prices have gone up over time. This stuff is expensive to build. It's primarily funded by a federal grant.
Okay.
The Sportsman's Grant that's, funded by every time you buy fishing tackle or boat, part of that tax goes into this and funds programs like these. When you buy a North Carolina fishing license, part of that money goes into this program. But these reefs, they're expensive to build. They're not expensive to maintain because once it's on the bottom of the ocean or the river, it's there. But to build them, they are expensive. Things cost money to build. Typically, concrete pipe, old bridges, things like that, that's all donated. So the only cost associated with that is trucking it to a stockpile site and then the actual deployment of it, from a barge, forklifts, offloaded into the water. But typically the material is donated. And that's really just a factor of, wherever that material is coming from. Let's use an example of the Bonner Bridge. So if anyone's familiar with Cape Hatteras, you have to take the bridge, from Nag's Head over to Hatteras, the old Oregon Inlet Bridge. So that entire bridge that was just deconstructed, that entire bridge, all of it went on to artificial reefs off the coast. The only other option with that material was to bust it up and put it in a landfill. So it makes sense, do we put a bunch of scrap concrete in a landfill or do we build habitat with it offshore?
Interesting. So when did this become such a precedent for the state? And how much of it, I guess I'm teeing you up for this one. I'm on the board, Black Bass Advisory Board for Maryland. I work a lot with people for the Chesapeake Bay, Virginia, Maryland, bread and butter. And their biggest thing for 10 years has been the oysters.
Sure.
Has that been a big thing in the Carolinas too, to bring back? What is the history of oysters in this area?
Yeah, so oysters are huge. I mean, anybody who lives anywhere on the East Coast, Gulf, even California, Oregon, Washington, oysters are huge. Everyone knows, we've seen a massive decline in oyster populations, running the gambit for reasons why, pollution, overfishing, climate change, you name it. Oyster populations in general, 90% plus decline in populations, right? And so that's become a huge, huge issue that has become, in a lot of places, government funded to help restore, the Chesapeake Bay, world famous for trying to restore the estuary, restore the oyster reefs. North Carolina, same thing. We have the Pamlico Sound, Albemarle Sound. That's one of the largest estuaries in the world. We do the exact same thing as the Chesapeake Bay, so large-scale oyster restoration.
Is the history of the pollution issue in this area, was it as bad as the Chesapeake? Because I know the Chesapeake for a while, it got real bad.
I don't have the exact numbers on it. It's similar to kind of the same problems you see everywhere else. Just, pollution from runoff, pesticides, agriculture, business. I mean, no surprise. It's, same issues, eutrophication, low DO, low dissolved oxygen, things like that, sedimentation of stuff.
The runoff from new construction, I mean, that's a big one. I remember talking to the Chesapeake Bay Association about that last year. I think it was on the show, guys. And we really talked about how something has to be done at some point with zoning in these new constructions and how that is actually affecting the watersheds when you get all that runoff. Because it's 2025 and this is still an issue.
Yeah. I mean, the saying is, you're not gonna oyster your way out of a water quality issue. You can have as many oysters as the water will allow, and if you've got pollution coming from upstream, that's just the way of things, So creating more oyster habitat and restoring the estuaries is a great thing. It's definitely helping. I mean, we're seeing more oysters. I would guess, if governments were throwing money into it and weren't seeing any results, those funds would probably dry up pretty quickly. In North Carolina, we're seeing a really good response. We're seeing really good growth of the oyster habitats that we're building. So if anybody's curious, you can go, if you search North Carolina Artificial Reef or North Carolina Oyster Sanctuary, that'll bring you to the webpage, and you can see the projects we're doing. And so specifically in the Artificial Reef program, we have specialized reefs inshore that are called oyster sanctuaries. And these reefs that are built, they're built largely with that limestone marl I was talking about, but they're built as no harvest oyster zones. You can fin fish on them, phenomenal places to go fishing, but you cannot harvest an oyster on them. The idea being that these reefs will then have large, healthy, non-harvested oysters that will spawn and that spawn, like I was saying, gets carried around and populates harvestable areas. And so we're seeing really, really good growth over the years of these oyster sanctuaries. That program started in 1996, and we are up to, I believe, 17 or 19 oyster sanctuaries now. We're typically building a new one every 3 to 4 years because they take 2, 3, 4 years to build. But these are large scale reefs. You're talking 50, 60, 100 acres, with 50,000, 80,000 tons of material put on them to grow these oysters. But yeah, the oyster work is hugely important up and down the coast. I mean, you're seeing states, both governments and NGOs, universities doing various size projects up and down the coast. North Carolina, I'm happy to say we're really good at doing it. We have an amazing oyster rehabilitation program. It's going really, really well, both with the oyster sanctuary program as well as the oyster culture reefs that we build that are harvestable for people to harvest on. But yeah, both programs are phenomenal at rehabilitating the oyster populations.
Has the redfish and trout population always been as good as it is, or is this something like I know in the Chesapeake, for instance, like it's growing, like and not just the fish, but the culture of catching them is growing. Has it always been there?
So, I mean, part of it is there's more people on the water and more people fishing than ever before. Especially during COVID, North Carolina, we saw record fishing license sales during COVID. Everybody's got a boat, everyone's going fishing, everyone's catching fish. So part of it, I think, it's just there's more people in the water, and so you're seeing more fish caught. I don't want to get too heavily into it because it's not my area of expertise, but like the red drum in North Carolina, at one point in history, were declining numbers. With putting slot sizes and things on them. The theory is if you have a limit on what you can catch, that's going to allow more fish to be around. Red drum, for example, not harvesting the big adult females and males, only having that slot size and allowing those larger fish to spawn. Same thing with trout. The theory is, okay, if you have some sort of limit on it, then that allows, potentially more fish to spawn. North Carolina, the big hot topic issue is flounder. Again, people are saying I've seen more flounder than I've ever seen in my life. And it's like, okay, well, I don't know for sure. Again, it's not my exact wheelhouse, but the theory is, okay, if there's regulations on it, and there's less flounder being caught, then there's going to be more flounder spawning and recruiting. And so, and the theory is in the future, the season will open up and you'll be able to catch flounder again.
If people want to follow you, donate, or get involved, what can they do?
Yeah, so we're, like I said, we're, in North Carolina, it's largely funded by tax dollars or fishing licenses, right? So the oyster work is largely a legislative process. So the North Carolina legislator, sets aside, a certain amount of funds per year for the oyster work to happen. Offshore, if you want, building the reefs, we've got the federal grant. So every time you buy fishing equipment, part of that goes into that federal grant that we get some money out of, and then a North Carolina fishing license. We get a percentage of those funds that go directly into purchasing material and deploying material.
Awesome stuff.
Other than that, go fishing and go diving. They're fantastic places to go fishing and diving on. send me an email, shoot me a phone call. We've got a great website with an interactive reef guide on it. On that interactive reef guide, we've got all the reefs and we've got all the materials on those reefs. You can zoom into each one, click on the material, see what it is, when it was put out, and most importantly, the coordinates for that spot.
That's so
You can
cool.
download those all right to your GPS. So instead, you might know where the reef is, but you're still going to spend a lot of time putting around looking for the, the big pile of 4,000 tons of concrete pipe or the, the 300-foot boat. So instead of doing that, you can know exactly where it is because we provide it to you. So that's, that's really the end service that we provide as the artificial reef program is, again, these are built as habitat, but they're also built for people to go fishing and diving on. So we provide all that. That's obviously, free of charge. You don't have to, it's not a subscription or anything like that. It's all just on the website. If you're here at the show, come by our booth. We're in the back corner. You can pick up one of those cards with a QR code on it. Otherwise, it's on the Artificial Reef website. Download the coordinates, check the map out.
That's awesome. Nick, I really appreciate your time. Guys, go check him out. We're going to take a quick 5-minute break, and we're going to be back with our next guest.
How can we, if my wife wants to watch this, where's she going to watch it at?
We go fishing. It's also on Raleigh.
Okay, fishing DMV? Okay.
All right, everyone, we are back. Let me know how the audio is going on right now. There we go. Deep Creek Lake Lures. I've been wanting to talk to you guys for a while. How you doing, boss?
Doing good, bud. How about you?
I'm doing great.
Wait for that snow to get here.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, I think we were talking before we came online. What is your other profession that you do?
I'm a lineman. I do line work. I live in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and been there 36 years. So I'm up here, and I got to leave here about 3 o'clock and get back in case the power goes out. We got ice coming. So,
how bad do you think the storm is going to be?
They said we can get from a trace to a quarter of an inch. If it gets over a quarter of an inch, that's when the trees go to falling. That's when we have trouble.
That's crazy.
It is.
So, how do you go from lineman to lures?
Well, I've been fishing since I was in high school, a senior in high school, and I fished a lot of bass tournaments local, and got tied up with Deep Creek. Matter of fact, the man that owns Deep Creek Lures, my Sunday school teacher.
Oh, cool.
So he brought me on board to do what a pro staff to help promote the baits and stuff and fish the baits.
Well, that is awesome.
Yeah, I got lucky.
Yeah. So, being in the area, what is kind of like your favorite place to fish?
I'm a big Jordan Lake, Sharon Harris, Falls Lake, river rat. I like the rivers out towards the eastern part of the state, Roanoke River, places like that.
Okay. Yeah, Sharon Harris, man. Like, I've had a couple people on today talking about that place, and it seems like it's not what it used to be necessarily. Like when the BPT went there 3 or 4 years ago, I think it is now.
It's been about 4 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. What changed?
They got hit rid of the hydrilla. They killed the hydrilla. They sprayed it. So they ruined the lake to get rid of hydrilla.
Yeah, I don't know what this war is on grass because, I mean, Lake Anna, where we are, starting to get a little bit back. Smith Mountain Lake doesn't have a lick of it. If Bugs Island would get a little bit of grass, that place would just be insane.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yep, definitely. Well, it's like anything else. If me and you eat and walk the whole time we were eating, we're going to get skinnier. I need it. So a bass don't have nowhere to hide. They take the hydrilla out, so instead of a fish sitting there waiting to ambush prey when it comes by, they got to swim and chase the whole time. That's why that does away with it. Hey, buddy.
With that being said, when you're fishing around here, generally speaking, for people that aren't from the area, is it pretty much just docks, rocks, and scoping? Is kind of the fishing style around here?
Well, but believe it or not, Jordan, Harris, and Falls don't have docks in it. Now, Tillery, Baden, High Rock, Tuckertown, up the western part of the state, they got a lot of docks. Around here is rocks, grass, what little bit of grass we do have. And we got baiting grass and stuff. We call it baiting grass at Jordan Lake and up at Gaston. Now, Gaston used to be slammed full of hydrilla, but they sprayed it and killed it too. So now we got what they call baiting grass, but it grows in about 2 foot of water or less. Hydrilla grow out 6-8 foot of water. So that's the difference between the two grasses that way. So it kind of limits what you can do with the bank grass versus the hydrilla. Hydrilla is the top dog when it comes to grass fishing.
Okay.
Like in Florida, it's full of hydrilla. Different places in Florida's got hydrilla. So, but here, it's gone. There's no more lakes with hydrilla no more.
So what is your style of fishing, or what are you most comfortable with?
Well, I like to do it all. I like offshore and I like to fish shallow. This time of year, it's going to be the deal where if you want to fish your rocks, find a place that heat up, find the north end of the lake that's got the most sunshine on them, and fish those places protected from the wind. And then as it gets a little bit warmer, the fish around here move to the back of the creeks. End of March, 1st of April, May, they're going to get back and start doing their thing spawning, and then they're going to come back out, and then we'll catch them offshore. So I do like fishing offshore. The forward-facing sonar is new to an old dog like me. Them young kids, they know how to run it. I'm still learning it, but that's a big thing now is the forward-facing sonar.
Yeah, no, that has changed, and it's for better or worse because I feel like it's opened up some lakes that are usually just hard to fish.
Definitely.
You know, the open water bite at Bugs Island, like that was hit or miss before scope came out there. There's a lake near me, Lake Frederick, who there's nothing on the shore, no docks, no laydowns, and there's blueback. And people be like, "Oh, the lake sucks." Scope comes around, it's like, "Holy shit, there's 20 pounds in here."
Exactly right.
I mean, it's insane how it is. Like, it's a devil kind of thing. But if you're not going to have grass and docks and all this other stuff, it might be the only way you can catch a decent bag out of some of these lakes.
You're right. Carr Lake, y'all call it Bugs Island. I call it Carr Lake. Same thing. It's one of the toughest places to fish. Now, don't get me wrong. In March and April, you can fish some of them points with a jerk bait and a rattle trap. You catch them 3 and 4, 5 pound fish. But after that, they're gone. and they're out there chasing them bluebacks.
Yep.
And if you don't have that forward-facing sonar, you're behind the 8 ball front with.
Yeah.
Nowadays.
So with all that said, let's tie this back into Deep Creek Baits. What kind of offerings do they have here now, and what are some of the things that you have we can show the audience?
Deep Creek has a saltwater side and a freshwater side.
Ooh, cool.
Yeah. And originally, this bait right here was it's got Salty Bay baits on it. And I think that's the Mardi Gras.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And this one is the Electric Chicken. It's the pink one. This bait, it's new this year, 4-inch swim bait.
Oh,
it can be used for a chatterbait trailer. It can be used, of course, for swim bait. It can be used on an Alabama rig. A lot of saltwater guys are using this one to catch the trout. That's a big color for trout fishing.
Oh, wow.
The speckled trout.
For my smallmouth guys, that actually might be a thing, too.
Smallmouth, too. Which we don't have it all smallmouth around here, but yeah. The swim bait, Alabama rig, trout fishing. A buddy of mine went down to the coast 2 weeks ago and was catching flounder on this certain color of swim bait. And this bait right here, you can just barely reel it, and that tail's is eating it. You don't have to really burn it to get a lot of action out of it. So that's going to be a good bait for everybody this year as far as trout fishing and bass fishing.
What size head do you like to pair with that?
Depending on the wind. I mean, nothing lighter than an 8, nothing no heavier than a 3/8 or a quarter.
Okay.
You know, it just depends on how deep and how if it's windy or not.
Okay.
On the Alabama rig, I put a 16th on it, and then put a bigger, maybe a 1/4 ounce on the middle back bait to make it fall. We fish a lot of rocks up here this time of year on Alabama rig. You don't want to get it too heavy. You get a hug up in them rocks, and you got a $15 bait going. Mm-hmm. Them Alabama rigs are expensive.
Yeah, they are. Boy, they are. Saltwater fishing. That's the one cool thing that since I've been down here in Virginia and a little bit of Maryland, it is pretty much fresh water for most until you get to the coast. Here, it seems like there's a lot more saltwater enthusiasts. Is that right?
There is. I'm not a saltwater guy, but I bought this bait to show you for freshwater. I always pick at people that fish the beach. I ask them, I say, you know why God made salt water? They say, why? I said, for people that can't bass fish. You know, but then they say, well, if you go saltwater fishing, catch them big fish, you quit that bass,
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, saltwater fishing around here in the eastern part of North Carolina is a big deal. And them guys are good at it. They really are. They're using spot lock, trolling motors and stuff just like we do bass fishing.
Mm-hmm.
The guys inshore, it's big.
Oh, the red fishing and the speck trout fishing is just blown up.
And that's bass fishing in salt water.
Yeah.
You just catch them on the same baits. You catch them, tall water baits or spinner baits or whatever. Yeah.
Like
them guys, they can do it, buddy.
It's addicting, too.
It really is. It really is.
So with all that said, pivoting back, because you said you like fresh water, what tournaments do you have coming up this year that you're going to be fishing?
Cat trails, fish field to Piedmonts, the Fishers of Men. That's another good trail around here. I usually concentrate on those 3 trails. I try to fish as many as I can. My fishing partner, he has a off and on every other weekend working. So it's kind of limited. We can say, okay, we're going to fish this one trail. But a lot of them, on the cat trail, you can fish 2 and qualify for the classic. So we're going to get our 2 up on our belt. And we do fish like little club tournaments off and on here in Fayetteville, too, around the Fayetteville area.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. What lake would you like to see the BFLs go to?
The BFLs. I like to see them on Carter. I really would. I love to see MLF on Carter. Now, Bassmaster is going to the rivers this year. They're rolling up the show on the eastern part. They're going to put it in that Papa tank. That's where we're going out of. That's going to be interesting. MLF come here last year to the rivers. But I would love to see somebody go to Kerr, Bugs Island. It's been a long time since they had a big major tournament there like that. Not televised. And BFL went there, 2 years ago?
Yeah.
I think it was 2 years ago. That was a good turnout. Yeah.
Gaston is a lake that I feel like it doesn't get enough love, and I don't know if it's because of the boat ramp situation or what, but it's just as big as Smith Mountain Lake, and it's got some pretty good bags coming out of it.
Gaston is great in the spring, but if you get from June on, those water crafts and weight boats and stuff, it's tough.
Yeah.
Gaston will be another good one to go to. Matter of fact, I was talking to a guy I met here today that lives on Gaston. Me and him had a 20-30 minute conversation. He caught a 5.5 pound spot up there. He showed me a picture of it.
Wow.
At Gaston.
That's insane.
It is. They're up there. I mean, that's another touchy situation. People don't like spots, so do like spots. But
they're in it to stay. I mean, you're not gonna get rid of them.
You ain't get rid of them. They get in Kerr too now.
Mm-hmm.
They're all in Kerr. I mean, you don't catch as many as you do at Carr, But me and Jesse Wise was talking about this morning. If they ever get in Kerr Lake, they will prosper. There's a lot of bluebacks in Kerr Lake.
Oh my God, yeah.
So they'll be able to eat machines.
Oh, dude, they are eating machines.
Yeah.
And I see you also have a glide bait there. I
Yes,
think?
sir. One of our new glide baits this year. Everybody's got the glide bait out. That is a go-to bait early spring on up to early summer. A lot of clear water lakes around here, Tillery, Gaston, places like that, but clear water. That's producer right there too. A lot of big fish. You're not going to need bites. You're looking for 5 or 6 bites. You're not going to catch a lot of fish. But when you catch one, it's going to be a good one.
What is your experience with glide baiting? Was that a hard thing to get into when it first came on? Because to me, it's like a weird. How do I implement this in tournament fishing? Yeah, you can go out there and you'll crack a big one, but it's almost like swinging for the fence. You know you're going to strike out a lot.
That's right. Like the big old floater spoon.
Yeah.
If you're swinging for the fence. I mean, you cannot go out there and say, okay, we're going to set the world on fire. I'm gonna rip them today. It's a big fish bait. I mean, if you've got 4 in a live well, you're sitting on about 18 or 19 pounds, and you know it's going to take 23, 24 to even get a check. That's your go-to bait. Hope you'll catch your 5, 6 pound fish to get you over that, to get you in the running. It's a tool. It's like anything else. You don't go out there and fish it all the time, but when you need a big fish, that's a big fish
That's
bait.
what you're going to use.
Back in the day, it's always a jig.
Yeah.
Big fish, got to fit that jig, catch a big fish. All them little fish bait, bite them worms. That's a big fish bait for sure.
Yeah, I remember my high school coach always talking about that. It's like the guy that'll lock a jig in his hand, and if he gets his 5 bites, he wins. But he's not going to always do that. And I feel like, just like you said, the mag draft, the glide bait, the flutter spoon, that's kind of taking that role of that guy that if you lock it in for 100 tournaments, you're going to win at least one.
Yep, that's right.
But it's a ratio game.
That's right. It's a mindset ratio. You're exactly right. In your mind, you're thinking, what's everybody else got? I mean, I got to have, but you know you're not going to get that 2 or 3 pound fish bite like you would on a chatter bait or a jerk bait or something. But a big fish, that's what you go to. I know you've heard it. Bigger the bait, bigger the fish.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of truth to that.
There is.
But you can cover a lot of water with this bait versus flipping the jig all day. I mean, really, you can just keep moving. I mean, it's a side bait. You know, you're going to sit there and watch it, and when he hammers it, you see that old big mouth come up there, it's a good thing.
So Deep Creek Lures, everyone, come on down and check them out here at the Raleigh Fishing Show. If they can't make it for some reason, you have a website or anywhere they can get baits from?
Deep Creek Lures. We got a website, and we're on Facebook.
Awesome stuff.
Yep.
Guys, we're going to be taking a quick 5 to 10 minute break here while we get to our next guest. Stay tuned. Be safe. You guys are coming here on the roads. We'll see you soon. we can get into it here.
We can act like we like each other if anything. It's off the slide here just in case they need to kick somebody to the curb.
All righty, guys. We are back and going again. So, I mean, yeah, go for it. You are hyping them up and you got the introductions all dialed in. I'll just sit back and listen.
So we're here today to represent JB Custom Rods. I brought Bryce McKinney up here and also Jesse Wise, and they've been with us for a very, very long time. We just want to talk and tell the consumers about our rods and why, the advantage on the water will, increase your catch. Go ahead, guys.
Go for it.
I'll kind of kick it off, I guess, just give a little bit of history about the company. So, JB Custom Rods was founded by John Ballard, hence the JB. Done North Carolina 25 years ago or better, and John had one goal in mind, which was to build the best bass fishing rod. And he's obviously, over the years, we've gotten into the saltwater world a lot, done some fly rods, done a little bit of everything. But what we really do is technique-specific bass rods. It's a kind of at the heart of everything we do is sensitivity. So can't feel a fish bite, you're going to have a hard time catching him. So we try to make our rods to be the most sensitive on the market. And we also try to provide those premium components in a small shop feel. We're not a big box. We're not building them on an assembly line. We're not ordering parts from China or built rods from China. Everything is hand built right there in our store. And John passed away a few years ago, and Jeremy Reed now is the owner and has carried on the tradition of trying to keep something that's going away very quickly in our industry, yeah. I think, which is, stuff like we've got here at this show this weekend. That's what's so great about these shows is you get to interact with the people who actually make, the people who actually build, guys who are going out here and putting their blood, sweat, and tears into innovating in the fishing industry. I mean, things would stay stagnant forever if we depended on the big guys to innovate. It's the little guys that innovate, So I think that's the biggest thing you get from coming to shows like this and from dealing with your local shops and JB Custom Rods. We certainly are proud to be in that. You can make an appointment and come see us or come to a show or go on the website, jbcustomrods.net, and check us out. But you're not going to see us in big box stores. We're kind of a little more of a niche boutique thing. But what that allows us to do is it allows us to invent, to try things, and to really allow the consumer to have a wider option of rods where they're not just walking into a store and, seeing the same rod over and over and over again with a different label on it, basically. 95% of the fishing rods everyone fishes with across the country come from the same factory complex in China, regardless if they cost $20 or $500. Yep. So I think that's, one of the things we're proud of is that we still hand make and we still build and we still innovate. And obviously, things change over the years. The fishing industry changes over the years, and we try to stay ahead of those trends and stuff. And Jesse here fishes the professional trails. He fishes all over the country, and I think he definitely, you can certainly speak to what that's like, having a whole assortment of different rods, different actions, and being able to come to us and say, hey, I need a rod that'll do this and do this really well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Hey, everybody, I'm Jesse Wise. I fish the NPFL National Professional Fishing League. 3 years ago when I signed up to fish the National Trail, I didn't really know what I was getting myself into. I fished locally for a long time, but when you fish locally, you're only going to fish a certain amount of ways. When you fish nationally, you've got to have a whole assortment of ways. And then, our line of rods, we got something that pretty much fishes everything. And it's, one of our main slogans is sensitivity is powerful. If you're fishing in cold water and a lethargic bass and a bass comes up and smells your bait, I've always, laughed about it. But now since forward-facing sonar's come into effect the last few years, you can watch the fish that come up to it. Them little subtle bites you can feel on our rods. You absolutely feel way more with the sensitivity in the grip and everything. So, I think it's a huge benefit to what we can offer the market across America. If you're in California, you can go on your website, on our website, jbcustomrods.net, and you can order a rod. I'm telling you, one of my favorite things about the shows every year is seeing repeat customers they always come and get another rod or two because they want the, we're not like the big box stores where you can go buy, the $50 rod from Walmart or, $60 rod from our rods, is handmade, handcrafted here in Irwin, North Carolina. And, I think our show special is $190. So, I mean, it is an upper end rod, but I can tell you from experience, I broke 2 rods in at least 10 years, and both of them were my fault. The rod box shut on both of them when the rod box was wet.
I hate when that happens.
I've never broke a rod setting a hook or high sticking the fish. Now, you can break them high sticking the fish.
Oh, yeah. I've seen it
But
happen.
I've never done it. And that is, the Lord is my witness. I've never broke a rod other than my rod box.
The rod locker and the tailgate and the door
Yeah.
are the
Yeah.
biggest
That
enemies
usually
of
gets
fishing
me
rods.
going.
We've all done
That'll
it,
do
right?
it.
We've all done it.
What's so special though about our rods to a conventional rod? I mean, a conventional rod, your eyes are on top, right, from butt to tip. What's so special about the JB custom rods?
I mean,
what we do?
Honestly, I like this. We got a spiral wrap. So on all our casting stuff, the spiral wrap, it starts at the top, and by the time it comes to the end of the rod, is the eyes are facing down. I don't know if they can see it.
I can try to do it in the camera. I might get some effect. I might destroy your camera here.
Let's see if I can.
But
So the spiral effect on the rod, whenever you're fighting a fish by the boat, if the fish is digging, you get the fish up close to the boat and they're making a surge, the way that rod bends and stuff, you can really tell with the eyes let it bend to that rod, and it's not putting a lot of pressure on our blanks, so it's not weakening the blank. That's what I like about fighting a fish. It's just a super easier fighting a fish with that.
And with all the people that are listening now, we have people of all ages and all skill levels. What makes a rod sensitive? Because you'll hear that. I don't think people truly understand like what makes a sensitive rod versus a non-sensitive.
Well, not only the blank, but in my opinion, it's the various components that you put on it, right? And how it's put together. For example, have a sprawl wrap, all right? You increase your sensitivity because the way that line plays in those eyes when it goes through. A conventional rod, when you throw it, it waves. The line will automatically wave. It's called line slap. So it's slapping against that rod blade. On a sprawl wrap, when it comes through that transition point, okay, from top to underneath, she sprawls out just like it does, when it comes out of a weapon, okay? Just like, a bullet coming out of a weapon. So you increase your distance, right, for one. When he was talking about that fish digging and all, and that fish turning on you, your wrist is still in contact with that rod, and it's not twisting your wrist. So therefore, you're controlling that fish instead of the fish controlling you, all right? So it's a better fight. Also, the blank, in the way we do our construction of the handle, all right, the components are the same, so you're feeling the sensitivity from the tip all the way down through that rod bank to the handle, and what we did is 2 pieces. So,
and that's the biggest thing, I think, that, people come in the shop, come in the booth, whatever, and ask, 2 different questions. One, of course, sensitivity. The other, of course, casting distance, casting ease, whatever you want to say. There's a couple of different things to look for, whether you're buying one of our rods or anybody's rods for that matter. I mean, one, what's massively used as far as handles go on the market right now? Cork and foam, EVA foam. Both of those are insulators. Both of those are great if you want to, insulate a soundproof room, so we don't have all the background noise here or something like that. You think about an insulator, that's something that deadens vibration, deadens sound. So why do we use that on a fishing rod? If we want to fill a fish bite, why would you use an insulator?
Interesting.
So what we started doing years ago was using wood, because wood's solid all the way through. Well, the problem with wood is over time it can break down, it can dry rot, things like that. So John came up with this. John's background was in chemical engineering. He knew a lot about epoxies, resins, the whole nine. He came up with this, which is a nano resin. So this is solid the whole way through to the blank. We hand make these, by the way. You can't buy these. You can't find them anywhere. We've seen the term thrown around a little bit by other companies, but nobody else is doing this because we're the only ones that know what it's made of. And John was not going to tell anybody, and he would have taken it to his grave with him, I think, if a few of us hadn't worked it out of him over the years. But so this is solid the whole way through to the blank. So no matter how you're touching that rod, you've either got exposed blank right here, or you've got something solid the whole way through.
Okay.
Now, casting distance, guys get freaked out about spiral wrap or this or that or what's going to make it cast better. I tell everybody where this first eye is what makes all the difference in the world with casting distance. And it's different for each action blank. So if this first eye is too close to the spool, you get a lot of friction. You can't cast it as far because it's coming off the spool. If you get it out too far, you're going to have line slap on the blank. So that's something to consider no matter what you're looking for in a rod. You know, is a couple of things just to think about, regardless of the brand, regardless of the cost, that you can make an informed decision as a consumer.
So a question we had on an earlier show today, which I didn't know how to answer, and you guys can answer this, is what is more sensitive? Is it a bait caster or a spinning rod, or is the reason you use a spinning rod just for the lighter line?
The blank is everything. I would say, you know, obviously a cranking rod, noodle rod that's a lot flimsier. You've got a lot higher modulus graphite, so you've got more graphite per unit area on it, is going to tend to be less sensitive overall. Which with cranking rods, you know, that might not be as big of a deal to you with a cranking rod. You know, a flipping rod. Think of a broom handle. You pull a broom handle off a broom and touch it to a wall, you can feel every little thing on there because it's just solid the entire way through. So, if, you know, it's not really necessarily spinning versus bait casting, which is more sensitive. It's which blank better fits the situation. And the bigger thing with spinning rods too is you usually have a lot more handle hardware.
Yep.
So a lot more of that foam, a lot more of that EVA or cork or whatnot. So spinning rods kind of get a reputation as not being very sensitive. It's a lot of it is because of just the amount of hardware there on the handle. But if it's the right kind of handle, you know, you can certainly make it just as sensitive as a bait cast rod.
What technique seems like it was the hardest to get the rod perfect for? Was there a technique sticks out in either of your minds where it's like, I really need to get this fine tuned?
I know over the years we've kind of been through fads and fads and fads with fishing, but I'm telling you what, man, it seemed like, and I'm speaking kind of for John Ballard, but the big spoons, the big Ben Parker spoons, and these giant, you know, 10XD massive crankbaits and stuff like that.
It's hard finding a solid blank big enough
that still has that tip action.
Okay. Yeah, that supports it with the tip and the backbone of the rod. You know, I think that's been very difficult.
And the same with a hollow body frog, right? You think frog fishing, you're 65-pound braid fishing heavy cover. Well, you still got to throw what's relatively lightweight lure.
Yeah.
So you try to use your flipping rod for that, and you're going to be backlashing constantly, or you're not going to be casting accurately, or not getting any distance. Those are some of the toughest ones I remember us kind of trying to bring to market over the years. Was the ones for some of these big, heavy lures that fish can shake so easy because you want to have enough of a soft tip that when that fish comes up and shakes, the rod's helping you keep that fish from shaking off. And then just thinking about some of the others, you know, especially in the saltwater world, like trout rods. It seems like trout rods are, you know, all over the place because guys want to throw sometimes a little heavier lure, but you want a really super soft rod for trout because they have a really, really soft mouth. So those are a couple that I know over the years we've kind of had to do a whole lot of.
Speaking of the frog rod, we got a frog rat rod, and man, when he got that thing figured out, you can chunk a frog now. Like, I mean, he got it figured out. And I'm telling you, that's one of my favorite ways to catch fish on that.
Probably went through 15, 20 different blanks to ever get to that one.
At least that one.
And then they discontinued the blank that we were building it with for years, and we had to go through the whole process again. So, yeah, that's one of the tougher ones, definitely, is a frog rod.
I had Biz Baits on, I think a week ago. We talked just about the supply chain thing going from the virus era a couple years ago till now. Has the supply chain settled down now? Is it pretty easy on the back end to get everything you need now?
According to Jeremy, it really hasn't. We're still having difficulty getting certain blanks. Like me and Jesse, we kind of fight against it. We have one auto rod that I helped design with John many years ago, and he loves that blank. Well, I've got it. He wants it. He can't get the blank.
Yeah, they ain't got but one blank this year. Like, it literally, wow. I'm telling you, it's a tough rod to find, but if we can get more, they would see.
So you have to think about, like, you get some other stuff in Pac Bay and other places, they're having just as much difficulty getting the stuff where they get it made, okay? And we try to buy all USA-made products, all right? But sometimes we do have to go to China, and that's where U.S. companies are going to, okay, until something else happens, you know, come January 20th. But anyway.
Or Japan. I mean,
Japan,
we say everything you want about Chinese-made blanks, Taiwanese-made blanks. The Japanese have got jerk baits and fishing rod blanks figured out. I'm telling you, like some of the best rods we have on our line are some of those ones that are Bushido Warrior blanks that are Japanese made. I mean, they are awesome blanks. But again, supply chain. I mean, you're competing with major companies for some of these blanks, especially Bushido's competing. You know, Megabass buys a ton of their blanks.
I don't even think we can get our eyes that he used to use because since 2020, right?
Well, we still use our eyes, but for the longest time on the spinning rod, the first big eye was number 10.
Yep.
We waited 8 months to over a year before we got it. All right? Now, the supply chain has gotten better, but let's look at this. They're still having issues themselves to get the raw materials in. But also prices have increased 15, 18% across the board, and we're still selling our rods, okay, 190, 200, and 220, and our three different ESP versus Venom versus Wicked series. So we try to reduce what we do, but in the same time frame, we're at the beck and call of the supplier too.
Yeah, it's
the one thing we had going for us. You know, COVID was tough on everybody. It was especially tough on JB Custom Rods because John Ballard died during COVID. You know, he passed away. He was the godfather of rod building. He learned from Bud Earhart and some of the masters from back in the day. And it was a tough time to transition to a new owner because Jeremy's coming into an environment where, yes, John's taught him a lot about rod building and he knows, but at the same time, he's having to keep the business going, support a small business during all of these supply chain shortages, all of these issues. And the biggest thing Jeremy had going for him during that time was over the years, John had stockpiled stuff.
Yep.
I mean, pack ratted to where the garage was so full that when we went to clean it out, I can't remember how many hundreds of blanks we pulled out of his blank racks.
That's
Guys, stuff like that. So he was literally able for 2 years when it was the worst to just use stuff we already had. And I mean, we got really thin at the show. I think there was one show we only brought 150 rods to the show, and we have 450 this year. So things have eased, and it's starting to ease a little, but yeah, it's still an issue. I mean, it really is. And the big companies are gobbling up a lot of it, so the little guys are having to kind of skimp for what we can find, you know. But it's also made some pretty neat innovations along the way as well.
It has. It's just a weird time because you're seeing more and more small little guys get gobbled up by these like massive Wall Street corps. Roboworm's gone, just to name one of them. It's scary, and that's why you got to get out there and really support locally. Come to these expos and everything. And if people want to try to make it out today but can't, where can they find you so they can try to get some of these awesome rods?
Go ahead, Jesse.
On the website, is that what you're asking? jbcustomrods.net. If I had to buy one rod, our most versatile rod that we have in our lineup is the snake. 7-foot snake. You can fish a lot of different baits on that. I mean, I know personally, I've thrown a buzz bait, I throw the spinner bait, I throw this lightweight jig on it. It's probably one of our best selling rods that we have from day in and day out all through the year. It's probably the snake. And just go check them out. If you buy one, I promise you, you're going to be back to buy some more. You're going to love it that much.
And you can definitely direct message us on Facebook and Instagram. I manage both of those pages, and we like to keep this, you know, what we are, a boutique, small builder, and keep that personal feel with our customers. You know, a lot of our customers, every year we see them, we know them when they walk through the door, and you know, we don't deal with retailers. You know, we just can't produce the volume to be in big box stores and retailers and still continue with the quality that we like to put into things. It's just not possible. By the time you scale up, you're going to have some give and take in quality, you know, especially when you're hand building each rod. So I would encourage people, just message us on Facebook. You know, you can look us up on the web, give Jeremy a call, the owner. He answers his phone. You know, you can come by if you're local to this area, to North Carolina. We got a shop right down the road, so you can stop by, schedule an appointment to come in and check out our line.
Hey, actually, next weekend, what's the dates for next Friday, Saturday,
Richmond.
Sunday? We got the Bass and Saltwater Expo at Richmond next Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So if you're in the Richmond area as well, we're gonna have
Northern Virginia.
We're gonna have the
17th through the 19th. So guys, and I'll be there too with a booth. Richmond Fishing Expo, 17th through the 19th at Doswell. There'll be a link in the episode description for that information if you need it.
We've been doing Richmond for years. We love that show.
Yeah.
We have
a fun show.
huge following up there too.
Yeah.
Much, you know, to Jim's credit. Jim's done a lot. Jim's been fishing Miller rods for years, and that's where he lives, and that's where, you know, he cut his teeth on bass fishing. You know, he's donated a lot of money to a lot of people up there over the years.
I have, you know, it's like Jeremy says, we're not in a business to make a living. We want to create friends. We want to create customers that come back and be repeats. You know, we want to listen to our customers, but sometimes they'll tell us, okay, what works and what doesn't work, if you really truly listen. Okay, so, you know, we're in a business not to make millions. We just want to take and make sure that you have a rod that you can take and perform better, okay, and catch more fish to enjoy God's creation. That's it, bottom line.
Yep.
I think that's a great way to end it. Guys, thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it. We're going to take a quick break before we have our next group on. So, yep, stay tuned. All righty, guys. We are back here on a it's beautiful in here. I don't know what it is outside. It could be terrible, but it's nice in here at the Raleigh Fishing Expo here on a Friday afternoon. And we're going to be getting started with our next conversation. Could you tell the fine people at home what booth you're at here and what you're doing?
All right. I'm Chris. I'm with 911 Custom Lures. We're booth space 80 and 81 here. I make custom-made bass jigs, buzzbait, and spinnerbait.
So how did you get into that?
How did I get into it? I've always fished my whole life. I kind of tinkered on a lot of stuff, had a little bit of an engineering background. And I just really like fishing a hand-tied jig. And I got tired of trying to look for them, so I said, I'm going to make my own. And just took off from there.
What was that first moment that you had that like, oh, this is something I actually want to get into and actually pursue as a career?
That first aha moment for me was when I started first making a jig, I entered into a contest. It was one of the lure companies they described it like the best built and then the best colors put together jig, and I won that part with the jig. And then I went back the next year and won it with a spinnerbait. So that's when I'm like, well, okay, there's something to this. So I had to purchase my own website and kind of teach myself how to do that, get on e-commerce a little bit. So,
What do you right now is like your best-selling bait?
The buzz baits for me are the best-selling ones right now. We call it a ticker buzz bait. That's where the blade will touch the head and it'll make a sound. And we're starting to tweak those and customize those a little bit to give you some extra sound with it. I don't actually build those heads anymore. I buy them. I'm out of time. I don't have time to pour everything up. So that's one thing I do buy from the company, the heads. I paint them, put everything else on it, hand-tied skirts, quality blades. And that's just been one of the great things for me. It'll make a distinct ticking sound, or you can bend the wire out just a little bit and it won't hardly touch at all. So you can change the sound of it, you can change how much. And we've had success with that buzzbait everywhere we went and everywhere people bought it.
I've talked to so many people down here that are just, the buzzbait culture is not something necessarily see up where I'm from. Like, what is with the buzzbait culture down here?
It's just that topwater bite, man. That's, it's just an awesome, see a fish explode on that buzzbait. Yep.
The clicker, was that something that really, for pun, clicked in your head that I want this on my buzzbait? Or did it take a while to experiment to get to that point, like, okay, this is something we would like to have?
No, how it developed for me is I had several customers that kept asking for a buzzbait that would do that. And I looked at various molds, and I finally found, like I said, this company out in the Midwest. And they sent me some samples. I went to work, and I'm like, yeah, let's do this. And so then the guys, they love it. They like that sound. A lot of the lakes that I'm from are, dark water, murky water. And then especially down east here in North Carolina, that murky water, the rivers that come into the sounds, those buzzbaits are phenomenal there.
Skirt versus threading a toad. Where are you on that debate?
Say that again.
Going with a skirt versus like a toad or a fluke
Right.
on there. What is your vibe?
I build both of them, and I've got applications for both. I like fishing the frog buzzes, the skirtless ones. I just think it's funner. That's another reason. I don't mind the skirted ones, and I build a lot of different colors, but there's just something when you put that creature on that skirtless buzzbait that those don't miss either. The hooks on those things are big, they're 5/0, and they don't miss.
Trailer hook or no trailer hook? I know this is a hot debate online.
This is what I tell people. I don't tournament fish anymore or anything like that. If I tournament fish, I definitely run a trailer hook.
Oh, okay.
For fun, I don't run a trailer hook.
Why do you think that's such a heated debate? Like, what is the thought process of not having one? Is it just the lure works better?
A lot of times on those buzz bait, the fish they'll blow up on them and they'll short strike them. So that's why a lot of guys want that trailer hook on it, so to be able to catch them short strike. Especially you get in current and it's hard for that fish to really pinpoint that buzz bait and a short strike behind it. That trailer hook saves that.
Oh, okay, interesting. So if people wanted to find you, where can they go?
911customlures.com is my website, and everything else to contact me is under the business name. So 911customlures@gmail.com gets you to my email. My phone number is on the website. Call, text me. Usually it'll take me about a day to get back to you. But
Do you have anything else coming up?
yeah, we do. I call it the circuit around here. We'll be in Richmond, Virginia next weekend. We'll be in Knoxville, Tennessee the weekend after that. Then Spindale, North Carolina is a little Angler's Choice open house event. And that's always a pretty cool place. And we had a few shows that were canceled, so we're going to try to do something in South Carolina.
What do you think is the best buzzbait place to fish? If you've never fished a buzzbait before, where would you tell them to go to actually catch their first buzzbait fish?
That's a tough question. The easiest would be a lake with some grass in it, like a water willow or something like that. But ironically for me, High Rock Lake is where I love to fish a buzzbait the most. There's not hardly any grass in that lake, and those fish will love to get on points and chase. And I mean that's fun. So
I would have had High Rock on my list.
any lake, I would say I wouldn't hesitate to throw one. I always have one tied on whenever I go.
Do you think like the buzzbait bite? Let me see how I'll phrase this question. What did the Whopper Plopper do to the buzzbait? Because it seems like the buzzbait's back, and for a while there, it kind of dipped out of the zeitgeist. Is that real? Did that actually happen?
Yeah, I think for what little bit I could study, the Whopper Plopper, it made a different sound, and then the shape of it coming through the water was the two things. I tried my best tinkering with buzzbait blades to make that Whopper Plopper sound, and I got close, but I never could get it exact on there, so I quit messing with it. But I just think the fish react to the Whopper Plopper, and then seeing that minnow shape coming through the water. I ain't gonna. I use them when I'm fishing in rivers, the Whopper Ploppers. But I don't know. Maybe it's the trend of the lure is why it kind of slowed down. I don't know. That one baffled me too.
Yeah. No, that is interesting. This is something I realized. Like it was just for a while there. That's all it was when it came to topwater was the plopper, and then it just came back. You know, the buzzbait buzz came back, which is fascinating. But I guess it's also culturally because, like again, like the buzzbait dock skipping, the toad. I mean, it just feels like it originated down here, for better or worse.
Right.
Dude, I really appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much. And guys, go check him out. Go check him out in his booth. Yeah, and we got some baits here.
Yeah, it's two of the buzzbait. Sure. You take them out of the pack if you need to.
Dude, and this is I'll show that off so you guys can actually see the name of that bait right there. Put that out there, nice and gentle. Hopefully. Oh, there we go. Oh, where are you stuck at? There we go. Oh, look at that clicker. That is money. How long did it take you to design that length for the clicker? Is that a hard process?
No, it was. So it's a standard. They come in standard sizes. So that's where we started. I would like to update this. I've seen some other designs out. I'm not going to say which one I'm going to go with yet, but I think we can do some other designs and come up with better sounds than what we can get just out of the metal piece on it.
To figure out which metal.
It's just, again, it just goes back to a sound. You know, what sound are you trying to create? And a lot of people don't know there's so much you can do to buzz baits. This is the offset blade, so it wobbles like a tire out of balance. And then it's a counterclockwise blade, so it turns opposite to what most normal buzzbait blades do, which causes it to run one direction or the other. So if you're left-handed and you want that buzzbait to run a certain way, we can buy blades and make blades to do that. A lot of people that want it to run straight, you're missing a lot of action with that. Yeah, you get a buzzbait that runs true, but you don't have the little bitty things to make the extra action and get the extreme action out of it. So that's what the offset blades are, blades with the holes in it.
Interesting.
You can bend the tabs on them, and then again, adding a little clacker to these just gives it that extra sound. Because you got metal on metal, then you got metal on paint and lead.
Generally speaking, do you want to fish it as fast as, like, do you want to have a fast, a person described it to me, like the way he fishes it is he tries to fish it as slow as humanly possible to keep the baits cooking. But I have another friend that basically acts like he's on cocaine and he just ranks the thing as hard. Is it to each his own, or is there a way that you feel like is the golden area to be in?
Obviously, if you're in current or in wind, I mean, you've got to reel a little bit faster to keep it up in that kind of water. But no, I mean, my personal opinion, I like to fish it very slow. I like for it to make just that flop, just enough to keep it on top. I don't have a problem fishing it fast. And a lot of times, if I'm fishing, I will say a bunch of trash or treetop, I'll come through that pretty quick, just to get the fish if I can get them to come out of there. But other than that, I like fishing slow.
Yeah, I'd say the same thing.
Right.
Sir, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. As always, guys, come on out here to the Raleigh Fishing Expo. And if you can't make it, if you're up north in my country, Richmond Fishing Expo next weekend as well. Our next guest is going to be scheduled for 3 o'clock. We will see you do you usually go to?
I like Smith myself because it's where I fish the majority of the tournaments that I fish. And it's kind of like, that's where I started fishing. The water's clear. I really like that. I feel like the fish are more pressured at Smith. So if I'm gonna create a bait or adapt a technique and then create a bait off of that, I want to do it in a place where the fishing is a little tougher, so it can be proven against harder to catch fish, so other people have success as well.
Okay. So if you guys don't know, if you didn't watch our episode last year, how did this all develop?
Yeah, so it actually is funny enough you brought up Leesville. We fished a tournament and we won, and we were throwing a drop shot, but the water got dirty throughout the week, and we had a tournament coming up. I think I went on like a Wednesday, and Ford Face and Sonar, when it first came out, I was able to get it, and I was throwing the drop shot close to the fish, and unless you literally were within inches of them or touching them, they just weren't going to bite it because the water had gotten dirty. But I would throw moving baits, bigger, heavier flipping baits, and I just couldn't get bit. If you got it close to the fish, they would still react to the drop shot, but their bite window, their strike zone was so small, it was ridiculous. So the thought was like, man, we should have a rattling drop shot weight. And then I just kind of played with it over time and figured out why it didn't exist. It was difficult. Lead is a sound dampening material by nature, but ultimately was able to kind of figure out something. And then it became, I fished it a little bit by myself. I gave it to some friends. They won some Friday night tournaments with it. They raved about it. So it just, one thing led to another, and here we are.
That is so cool.
Yeah, appreciate it.
So yeah, which one would you like to show off first?
Yeah, sure. So this is the original. Yeah, sure. There you go. That's the original design there. That's a 3/8. They all have a brass tube inside with tungsten beads, which gives it really loud rattle. And and probably more important than the sound is the vibration. And we have multiple sizes in that, from an 1/8 to a 1/2, multiple line ties. And then that spawned into the rattling Zika rig, which we call the rattle rig. So the same technology of the weight, the rattle, the vibration, but attached to a VMC wide gap hook. Multiple hook sizes in that, multiple weights.
That's really cool.
One of the things I like to do is kind of a sneaky technique with that is we all like throwing crankbaits, but most of the time it requires a little bit of wind to get that reaction, to get the fish up shallow or to get them reactive when they're shallow. Sometimes we don't always have the option of having the wind. So if you take that rig like a crawl on the back and you throw it out on the same point, so you keep your rod tip up and just slowly reel it, that thing is like free swinging and banging on rocks. So you're getting the tick and the reaction part without having to burn the crankbait. And it's just a little crawl bait on the bottom, just cruising around, and you can get bit kind of like a crankbait, but with no wind. That's the way I like to fish it.
How did you figure out when you were making the rattle what type of bead you wanted to put in there?
So I started with the same thing that you can see in the stores. You can buy a multi-pack of a glass tube with steel BBs, but they give a very faint, almost like a very high-pitched sound when you shake it. And to me, I knew there had to be another material. Plus, I was putting it inside the weight. So again, lead is a sound dampening material by nature, so it had to be something louder. I tried the steel BBs inside of different steel tubes, but ultimately, if you remember a long time ago, glass and brass was like the go-to thing for people night fishing, right? And it did make a very unique sound. So brass, that's where I got the brass from, and that's what I made the tubes in. But I wanted something really dense. Plus, I was hollowing out part of the weight, so I needed to replace that weight with something, and I was able to do that with tungsten. And magically, the combination of brass and tungsten give off a really low pitch, like a really hard,
deeper thud.
Oh man, it's awesome. When it like you can feel it when you're shaking it in your hand. You can feel the vibration.
It reminded me more of like a one knocker, almost a lipless bait, that harder thudding versus.
That's a good way of explaining it.
If people don't know, like some of the Uzuri lipless bait, it sounds like it's a bunch of sand in there. It's very quietish, but it's loud but quietish. That bait there, again, it's just a one knocker. It's one deep thud, thud, thud. A cold water to me is the first thing that always comes to mind when I think of that.
Yeah.
But that's a really, really cool idea.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you. And speaking of cold water, that is last year we came out with this. I think we were doing pre-orders last year when we talked to you.
Yes.
But that is the rattle head. That's our new rattle and shaky head, and that has the same design as far as the tungsten beads inside of a brass tube.
That's
a
cool.
4/0 mustad hook on there, and we have the centering pin and the screw lock to get the bait on there. And one thing I like to do, because you mentioned cold water, is instead of putting a zoom trick worm where there's a lot of movement, a lot of flopping around, I like to go with more like a stick bait, a Cinco, a Yum type bait, but just a small, simple stick bait that doesn't have a lot of movement, and you can keep it on the bottom and drag it across. And every time, if you maintain bottom contact is super important on a drop shot and a shaky head, and you would be surprised, especially doing tank demos. You shake your rod and you shake the tip and lift your rod, you can be 2, 3, 4 foot off the bottom in a matter of seconds, and you don't even realize that you're doing it. So being able to drag slowly and feel that on the bottom, as soon as you come across something and it stops, I like to shake it and then pop it over, and that's usually when you get the bite. It's kind of a reaction bite, I guess.
No, it definitely is a reaction bite.
That definitely has been our best seller. I guess a lot more people fish a shaky head than they do a drop shot. So.
As you have evolved with you as an angler and as a businessman, has the shaky head, has it come more popular, less popular, the same compared to like throwing a jig?
It's for me. It's if I'm going to choose between a shaky head and a jig, I'm going to pick a shaky head every time. I'm not a very strong jig fisherman. I fished with some really, really good jig fishermen, and it seems to me at my home lake, which is Smith Mountain Lake, it seems that the jig has just fallen off, not because of desire. But this is just my personal experience. I know that there are people out there that are going to laugh at me for saying that, but I know they're still catching them on a jig. But for us, we just can't get bit. But in the same places that we throw a jig, we go back with a shaky head and we catch quality fish, but we just can't get them on a jig. I don't know if those fish are more pressured. I don't know if our technique is just not right. I'm not sure, but the guys that fish around Smith Mountain Lake, they know names like Lee Neighbors, and Curtis Talbot, Steve Chris, people that have been known for throwing jigs over the years, and I fish with 2 of those guys on a pretty regular basis, and they still say the same thing, like they just can't catch them on a jig anymore, whereas years ago they were able to. So now I just skip all of that. I have a jig tied on most of the time, but most of the time I'm going to throw the shaky head, and I just have a lot of confidence in it.
Yeah, and guys, let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think of. Do you prefer a jig or a shaky head? I know with my Potomac River guys, a dirty little secret on title is the drop shot and the shaky head. I don't know if it's a secret anymore because everyone wins a shit ton of money on that stuff. Weight wise, what do you have available? Just to repeat that again for people that are watching. And what's your favorite weight when it comes to the shaky head?
For the shaky head, if I'm going to be skipping docks, I like a 3/16 because on the back of those docks, I would say 90+% of the docks at Smith on the backside have riprap. And it's easy to get your head stuck in that rock. And anyone that knows from a jig or a shaky head, it's a nightmare to get out. You're most likely going to break it off. It does seem with the 3/16, I'm able to get that back out pretty easy and then continue the retrieve. And I think it's easier to skip. I think it falls slower, so it gets more fish's attention because, you're only fishing water a foot deep under the back. So a real fast drop, they only had a split second to see movement or catch movement. So until they start hearing the rattles or seeing you move the bait, they don't know what's there yet, potentially, because, some of those docks are huge. They're 30, 40 feet across. So a slower fall, I think, gets more attention. It's just more natural. Nothing under there really is zooming around unless something's chasing it or you scare it. So I just think it's a more natural presentation. But we have 3/16, quarters, and 3/8 on the shaky head. Quarter is my go-to. Again, unless I'm fishing docks, and I like 3/16.
Interesting.
Yep. And our newest bait, this is the one that we're taking pre-orders now. As a matter of fact, this is the first time I've actually said anything about it publicly. And this is our forward-facing sonar. It's called the SS Minnow Head, and it's a swim bait head and also the like mid-strolling, hover strolling, whatever you want to call that. So swim bait and strolling head is where we get the SS Minnow name. But it has a rattle tube built in, just like our shaky heads. But we have a dual bait keeper on there, so you won't go through as many baits. That's an 1/8 ounce there with the 4/0 mustad hook. The cool design here is that we have this elongated line tie, so it acts more like a pendulum, so it actually rocks a lot easier. And anytime that you're strolling, you're really shaking it to get it to rock anyhow. But now, every time that you shake it, you're going to give just a little bit of sound and vibration. So instead of shaking it like this, if you just take your hand and just tap it, you'll feel that little.
Oh, that is neat.
So you can try it if you want. Just tap it between your fingers, and every time that you shake it, then you'll be able to hear and feel that.
Oh, that is wild, guys.
And then when you tie on that one, I have it here. You may be able to show that. I got enough slack for you to pull it over there. If you tie the loop knot to it, then you guys will be it'll rock a whole lot easier with that pendulum.
Look at that. That is sexy.
And now I got that bait. That's a custom made bait from Big Bite Baits. They have the mold to make a bunch of different colors. That's a pretty cool bait.
How long did it take you to was this like 2 years in the making?
Yeah.
Well, obviously, in the tournament, I think a lot of people are mad about forward-facing sonar, and that minnow has a lot to do with it because they're bored of watching people look at their screen and catch fish on a suspended minnow. I like the technique. It's not always the go-to. It has its time and place, and our fishery is different from what the pros are fishing and what kind of bait fish that they're targeting and things like that. But it's a thing. It's what everyone uses. But the cool deal about this head is I saw it. I like to use it, but I saw need for improvement, and I wanted to put my own spin in it. There's a lot of heads that I don't care what you do. You can tie a loop knot. You can do multiple things, but you just cannot get it to rock correctly, or it doesn't sit horizontal in the water, or it's very bait specific. Like some heads are made for certain baits. I like the head, but I don't like their bait. So there's just a lot of back and forth. Like I just couldn't really dial it into one that I particularly liked. So last winter, I was fishing that technique, and I was fishing some swim baits, and I kind of wanted to put my spin on it, and that's when I started thinking about it. The molds were made in, I think, June or July, and here it is in January, and I still don't have them yet, but that's just the world we live in.
Yeah, it is.
But I will have them in February. I'm going to have, this is a green pumpkin, but we're going to call it the go-to green. We'll have blue shad and green shad in multiple sizes. But the cool thing about that pendulum is it rocks. It's got the beads like we talked about, but you can put on, I think the popular ones like the Sakamoto shad, the freeloader, this is the Big Bite baits, bait there. And people are making custom baits because the molds are out now that you can make them. So there's a lot of options, but every one that I put on there so far, I'm still getting the same rocking action. I've had these maybe 3 weeks now, and I've gone every week. I think my wife's sick of it, but I've gone every weekend with the under the excuse that I'm going to go out and do some product testing and get some video. And I actually did last Sunday. It was 21 degrees when I got to the lake. And man, I had an amazing day. I was the only boat there all day. When I put in, I was the only one. When I took it, I was the only one. And I had like over 25 pounds. And I've got some video in the booth, and I had caught a 6 something, another 6, 2 5s, and it was all the forward facing sonar. So half the day I put a swim bait on it. And I forgot to talk about that, but when the swim bait's on it, if you see it, most swim baits get a little rocking action on the head. That's just a natural movement for that bait. As a matter of fact, you can hear like Brandon Polinick and them talking about you want a little roll. Chris Haldane talks about it with his baits. You want a little roll in the head. When naturally now when it's rolling, it's just giving just a little something. It's not a lot, but it's just a little something every time it rolls that fish just hasn't heard or seen or felt before. So I spent half the day swim baiting, and the other half of the day, all I did was take the bait off and then put on a straight tail minnow bait and then use that. And I caught a lot of fish that day. So it was a lot of fun. And that's where we got the name, the SS Minnow Head. So strolling swim bait head. That's what I came up with. So hopefully it'll do well.
What's your setup with that when it comes to rod, line, and reel?
I use a Fish Sticks rod. This one is the one that I had made specifically for this technique. I'm trying to remember the link. This is a 7.6 medium light. Medium is probably, like, if you haven't done this technique a lot, I would suggest a medium. If you're going to swim bait mostly, I would suggest a medium. And you want that because you're typically using lighter line. That's a Shimano Vanford reel. I have 10-pound gamma braid. And then I go from 7 to 10 pound on my fluorocarbon leader. That's also gamma. But it just depends on the situation. If it's super clear, if it's a tough day, high bluebird skies, I'm going to downsize my line. But if it's a little bit of wind, a little bit of color, I'm going to stick with the 9 and 10 pound line.
Sir, thank you so much for coming on. I mean, I really appreciate it.
Sure.
So just to say again for the audience, because I know the forward-facing sonar crowd is a big one, and they're always looking for new baits. When do you think that'll be ready, if it's not already?
So it'll be available for pre-order. It's available now, but I'm having some issues with the website. I've been working on it most of the morning. But I would say by tomorrow or Sunday, you can pre-order on the website, which is rattleshot.com. I'll be fully stocked and shipping out orders, hopefully early to mid-February.
Awesome stuff.
Yeah.
Well, guys, please go check him out there over at Drop Zone Tackle, and then we'll also see him again at Richmond in a week. Come on down to Raleigh. Come check it out while the roads are still nice. And we're going to be taking a little bit of a break here, guys. I am going to shut down this stream because it's over 3 hours long, and I'm going to start up a new stream here soon. So just brace yourselves. This is going to be shut down, and I'm going to start up a new one just so it's not going, for 800 hours like the Lord of the Rings. So I will talk to you guys later. And there we go.